Okay, welcome everybody. We've got quite a large number of people signed up for this, so I'm sure people are still signing in as we get started. We're recording the session. For those that have not been to any of the Future Teacher webinars before, we have this resource where the recordings of all the previous resources going back 7 years recordings of all the sessions have been available going back 7 years. And at the top of the resource here, there's a, which is the page where you registered, there's a link that tells us about that 7 year age of it, and then our principles, and then about us, and hopefully Julie's with us. We have a new volunteer joining us, and this is the first official session. We'll get Julie to introduce herself in a minute. And then further down, there's the topic for today. Registration form we leave in place because people register even now as we get started. And then there's a panel that welcomes you to the session, and then a panel for each of our speakers today. We have had a change of speaker, which I'm sure will be covered in a moment, and then a link to related resources and what next. Further down the page, you'll find the other recent recordings, and then if you navigate from the menu here, you'll find all the individual topics that we've done in the past and the recordings and resources that we've created for each of those. From about 12:30, I think, today, the registration form for the next session will appear. So if you, we'll share the link later as well, but if you refresh the page after 12:30, you'll find the registration form for the February session. So we've kind of just agreed who is going to go next, and so our first guest speaker will be Bob, but I think one of my colleagues is going to introduce that, so I'll stop my sharing and hand over to whoever's going to do that introduction.
It's Rosemary.
Yes, I am particularly delighted to welcome Bob Hallowell with us today. Bob is a lecturer in leadership and management at the Open University. He's been there since 1993, so quite a long time, in various roles, and real experience in terms of working in health, social care, education, both at the OU and the University of Nottingham. And I have actually seen the work of his modules in practice, which is why we'd invited him today to come and talk about how they engage students. So without further ado, Bob, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Rosemary, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm just about to attempt to share my screen with you and hoping that this actually works. Have I got the right screen?
You might have to swap it for the other one.
Okay, let's
Not to worry.
let's try that again. Let's try this one. How about that one?
Fab.
That's it.
Brilliant. So, as I said, good afternoon, everybody. And I was kindly asked by Rosemary to come along this afternoon and share with you something about how the Open University works with its online discussion forums to activate what we might grandly call peer-based learning. I thought I might just very briefly start with introducing you to the university itself in case you don't know a lot about the Open University. We are primarily a distance learning organisation that's based online, although we do have a main campus at Milton Keynes, just north of central London. And on that campus, we're hosting all the things you might see at your campus-based university in terms of our faculty offices, our conference centres, our lecture centres, an extended reality studio, and a range of laboratories that are supporting our research and postgraduate students as well. We have around 1,200 full-time academics, and an additional 5,000 or so associate lecturers who are supporting our students in the direct teaching of our courses and modules. We are one of the largest universities in the UK, or actually we are the largest university in the UK in terms of student numbers, and one of the largest in Europe. We have around 81,000 full-time equivalent students, or 144,506 who are directly taught by ourselves. We deliver what we deliver through 4 faculties: Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, Business and Law, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, and the Faculty of Wellbeing, Education and Language Studies, which is the particular faculty that I am based in. As part of our online courses, we make heavy use of forums in the respective modules. And as Rosemary has mentioned, she's experienced in these e-news, I believe, as a student. And we tend to use 2 types of main forum that support the delivery of our modules. One is the module-wide forum that is open to all students that are on a particular course, and the other is the tutor group forum that operates for smaller groups of students and is linked directly to the actual tutor that is supporting them. Here you can see some examples of activity within these forums. The 2 at the top are related to a postgraduate module that I am involved in. And you can see the sort of numbers we're getting there with our smaller postgraduate student engagement. And then the one towards the bottom is our one of our larger undergraduate programs. You can see in that introduction thread there that we're looking at a much larger body of students that are interacting within these specific modules. The module-wide forum tends to be monitored, maintained, responded to by the module team chair responsible for that module. And as I said, the tutor group forums are hosted by the individual tutors, and they're engaging much more in a more direct relationship with the students that they support in their studies, who they assess and mark assignments for, and who they provide direct study support for. So how do we use these forums? Well, we use them, as you maybe saw from some of those threads, for students to introduce themselves and for tutors to say hello. We use them to scaffold the students' academic writing alongside any activities that we may have within the modules itself. We use them to facilitate student support and communities of learning, and we very much encourage students to set up their own study groups and to work within those in terms of sharing their learning and activities that we're also trying to support within the actual official online forums. We use them to enable reflection and discussion on the module materials that they're studying. And one other aspect that we use it for is to facilitate personal and professional skill development. And we have, in some of the modules, we have specific PDP coaches to support that element of the discussion, and professional development, skills audits and supportive materials for that purpose as well. So a range of key aspects to us using the forums. We also use them to support the development of students' library skills, particularly important at the undergraduate level, but we are also engaging with more sophisticated use of library skills in the postgraduate arenas as well. They are used understandably to support discussion around assessments, and understandably also they can be one of the most significant areas of discussion within the online forums. They are also used to disseminate tutorial materials to students in line with the work that the tutors is doing with them, and to prepare students for learning in those arenas. And then we also sometimes in some activities have group-based work that we're requiring them to do either as part of their studies or as part of an assessment. And the online forums get used to coordinate those activities and help the students and support them in working towards the outcomes of the group work. What are our top tips? Well, I don't, claim to be an expert at all in the delivery of, the use of forums and how students use them, but these are based on some of what I've learned from working with the Open University and the way that they work them. Do set ground rules. You may have to moderate exchanges. You may have to temper the discussion at points in time. You may have to redirect it towards the actual course materials so that it doesn't stray off into other interesting, but not maybe too relevant areas of exploration. We do encourage the students to share information about their backgrounds, their interests, their roles, and we use ice-breaking exercises in various forms to enable that to happen. And that's great in terms of the students coming together in an online sense. And it's where we seem to get most of the interactions that students have. You do need to summarize the discussions that are taking place in your forums, but not to do so so often that it hinders further contributions. Trying not to be the expert. If you intervene too often, the students tend to shut down because they feel they don't have something to contribute, and it's you that has the answers. We encourage all our tutors, our academics, to start the forum threads themselves. If we want the learners to engage, we find that few students will step forward in leading in doing so, and so the activity never actually takes off. We actively build forum activities into our teaching with linking threads to key course and module materials. So that and we link those threads often to assessment requirements as a means of prompting students to engage. We also plan time in our own roles, our own work life, workloads to respond to these forum discussions and manage them. And the final point is just about don't at all be disappointed if not all learners respond or engage. Our experience suggests, and I'm sure some of yours will, that this is to be expected. Learners lurk in forums; they just watch as well as participate. We can tell that in our systems through the wonders of technology, but there'll still be pearls of wisdom that emerge, and we're confident that learning is still taking place. So summarizing some of our top tips, we see the role of the moderator of forums as a guide, someone who initiates conversation and engagement, who facilitates that then once that engagement takes place, who stimulates the debate by offering alternative perspectives, who refocuses the discussion on the topic area as necessary, and serves as someone that can summarize a range of perspectives that the students are bringing together. Just thought I'd share this very briefly with you as well. If you haven't come across it, the Open University has something called OpenLearn, which offers a massive range of free courses for everybody to access, depending on what you want to get out of this. So you can enroll on courses and receive statements of participation and badges. And I picked out one here that, as you can see, that's about building confidence in using online forums, that is actually aimed more at students, but might have some interesting kind of tidbits in it about how students may or may not engage in the forum settings. And I've also provided a link here to a much larger OpenLearn resource for Educators Hub, where you might find all sorts of wonderful things that I said are completely free to access, but may be useful to you in exploring other areas of interest. That's my little presentation, some of my top tips about forums. And I'm just going to leave you with this final question. What are yours? What do you do? How do you manage engagement and stimulate engagement in your own settings? Thank you very much.
That was great and perfectly on time as well, Bob. That was fabulous.
Thank you.
We'll just give people a minute to think about your question there. What are your top tips for using discussion forums? Because clearly discussion forums have been around a really long time and they don't feel very sexy, do they? Mike was asking a question. Feel free to answer in the chat and we'll come to those questions later on. But while people are popping their questions in the chat as well, I think I'm gonna pivot over to Sian to introduce Richard.
Hi, thanks Lillian, and thank you to Richard Gibbons, who is the Senior Product Manager Anthology Blackboard, for stepping in to talk about some of the AI conversation tools in Blackboard today, because we were due to have Dr. Dylan Jones, who's the Programme Lead for Biomedical Sciences at Bangor University, where I also work, talk about his use of the AI conversation tool in Blackboard, which we enabled in September 2024. Luckily, that was at a time when Blackboard did come to our campus for our teaching and learning mini conference that we have, and he was able to discuss it with Richard's colleagues, Martin and Simon Warwick as well. So Richard is a great speaker about the AI tools and all conversation tools and all the considerations around it. So thank you, Richard, for coming to speak to us.
No
Over to
problem
you,
at
Richard.
all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to be here. And thanks once again for thinking about me when we couldn't go ahead with the original speaker. That's super helpful. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. So let's dive in. So what I wanted to talk you through today was the AI conversation tool in Blackboard. So this was released into the product back in September initially, and then we enhanced it in November. But I want to just step you through our thinking towards this and then actually take you through hopefully a live demo. So hold on tight. So first of all, we as a company, we don't just want to use AI for the sake of it. We want to use it in a very responsible and trustworthy way, in line with pedagogical practices and the things that we hear from clients. We want to stay in lockstep with the community as we build out these tools. And we are getting recognition from the market for our approach. We know that lots of people are integrating AI into their products, but with our mindful and thoughtful approach, it's really nice that other people are recognizing the work that's going into our developments. Now, what is our approach? Well, at a very high level, because we don't have long today. First of all, any feature that we release into the product, the institution, first of all, decides whether they want to turn that particular feature on or not. So the institution is always in control. And as soon as the feature is switched on, we give it to instructors, and then they can decide whether they would like to use that feature or not. So again, just making sure that the human is in the center of what's going on, whether it's at the institutional level or whether it's at the instructional level. And then finally, we know that copyright and data privacy is a concern when we're engaging with AI, and any of the AI uses in our product do not contribute to the large language model. So your data is safe. You're using this in a very secure and privacy recognized way. So that's really important, and it just wouldn't work without those safeguards in place. So I'm going to move on to the demo, and hopefully just a little move of my screen, you can see Blackboard. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into my adult nursing course just here. Now I've got a module here called Introduction to Hospital Triage, and I've got a little bit of an introduction document here to introduce students to the concept of hospital triage. Now, one of the things I would like to do if I was face to face with these students is I'd maybe like to start a classroom exercise where we simulate a hospital triage activity. But because this is online, or potentially I've got a lot of students, it's really difficult to do that in a meaningful way. So we've introduced the AI conversation tool to simulate this exercise, but using AI to support it. So as the instructor now, I'm going to click on the plus button and I'm going to create a new item. And down the right-hand side, I've got the option to build an AI conversation. So I'm going to click on that, and then we'll get the interface to actually build this tool out. So the first thing I need to do is give this this conversation a name. So we're going to call it hospital triage activity. Now underneath, we've got a choice of what type of conversation we would like. Would you like a Socratic questioning exercise, or would you like more of a role play scenario exercise? And for this, we're going to use the role play. So now what I need to do is explain to the student how this is going to work. So you are a doctor on an emergency hospital ward, triaging patients as they enter the facility. You need to find out what is wrong with the patient and decide on the next steps of action. The AI persona will take on the role of the poorly patient. Okay, so that is the activity that we're going to do. Now we need to build out the AI persona. So I can edit the image here. I can use Unsplash, or I can actually AI generate an image if I want to. I'm not going to do that today just because of time. And we need to give the AI persona a name. So this is Patient Gibbons, and the personality trait is: you are a patient entering a hospital. You have a bruised face, swelling around the left side of the jaw, graze on the shoulder. You're in pain, slightly confused, mildly panicked. You can't remember what happened. So we're going to save that. And one of the other things you can do in this tool is you can actually set up a reflection question. Now, it's not just about the conversation. It's figuring out what the student's taken away, learned, or hasn't understood about this activity. So we do provide the opportunity for you to edit that reflection question and build something in meaningful there. So I can now release this to my students. I can make it visible at the top, but one of the things that we can do, and for the purposes of time, we're just going to preview it here. Okay, so just as a point, the student doesn't see this. So the student doesn't know what's wrong with the patient at this point. Okay, so the student will see this. Hi, my name is Patient Gibbons. My responses are generated by AI and therefore might be biased or inaccurate. Please share your initial thoughts on the topic. So I'm just going to say, hi, how can I help you? So I am now pretending to be the student or the doctor, and we need to find out what is wrong with this patient. So, hi, can I help you? Oh, hey, I don't feel too great. My face hurts really bad, especially on my jaw. I think it's swelling. My shoulder is scraped pretty bad too. I don't even know what happened. Everything's kind of fuzzy. Can you help me? So this is where the student can now use the education that they're hopefully picking up and learning through the course, and actually start to apply some techniques to get some more information out of the student. So, okay, no need to worry. I'm here to assist, help make you feel more comfortable. I can see your face was swollen. Was anybody with you? I don't think so. I don't remember anyone being there. It's blurry. I got knocked out. Now, I don't need to step through every stage of this conversation, but I'm pretty sure you're getting the sense that the student can now ask any question that they feel is appropriate, and the AI will respond in the persona of the patient. Okay, so effectively the student just works through that conversation, maybe offers some comfort, maybe offers some medication, maybe offers some further tests, and eventually the conversation should come to a natural close with the patient being suitably triaged onto the next stage of their treatment. Now, obviously the student can take this in any direction that they feel is suitable, and that's kind of the beauty of it. It is stimulating that kind of one-on-one that you might have with a student, but you can't repeat it 40 times. Whereas you can set the tool up and you can run this with your students, and it can run 40 times, and you can effectively then review the transcript and the reflection question that they offer up. So this is the way the tool works. Now, I'm just going to come out of there. I did learn about another use case for the tool, and it was a who am I exercise. So this was a suggestion from an institution in the US. You have to guess the AI persona. You can ask any question of the AI persona and they'll answer honestly. The AI persona will confirm the identity if you guess it correctly. And I've set it up to be President Trump. So effectively, the student can now go through and ask lots of questions. And if I simply ask, hi, who are you? We should find out that it won't give that response because we've told it not to, but it is giving hints of who they might be. So when you're looking to engage learners and help them get engaged and participate in the course, you can come up with these quite quirky activities that are driven by the AI conversation in order to encourage that student engagement. And that's just a really nice use case that I came across. I think it was only on Tuesday, and I built this straight away to try it out myself. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of how this can be used. It is also just worth saying that the instructor is in control as they're setting it up. They release it to their students when they're ready. When the student completes the exercise, it gets submitted back to the grade book. You see the full transcript, you see the reflection question, you can offer up a grade. So it's not like you're just sending the student out to an external tool. This is all in the safety and the comfort of the learning management system. And that kind of is the sweet spot that we've tried to hit here. So we've released quite a lot of features into the AI Design Assistant. So you can generate learning modules, you can generate test questions, you can now have these AI conversations. And these are just all included with your Blackboard license. There's no extra fee to use these AI features. Now, from us building it to what is the impact, we've now had 652 institutions turn on at least one element of the AI Design Assistant, with over 1.2 million unique uses of the tool itself, which we are incredibly proud of and didn't think we would get this much traction this quickly. And the acceptance rate between an instructor starting to build a tool through to committing it to the course is around 47%. So again, the suggestions that are coming out of the AI tools seem to be resonating. Now, we do ask instructors, is this having an impact? And the impact that we're seeing is that it's saving them time, and it is offering a level of inspiration that might not have been there before, or it might not have been possible to achieve that level of inspiration directly within the course experience. So again, just another great figure to say that we're onto something here, and we're heading down quite a good path. Now, with regard specifically to the AI conversation, this has been in production since September, so it's our newest AI tool. We've now got 235 clients with this feature switched on. I checked these figures this morning, so they're bang up to date. And we've had 159,000 messages sent by students through the AI conversation tool. So students are actually engaging with it, and the numbers of students engaging with it are actually just over 18,000 students worldwide. So this is gaining traction. Instructors are putting it into their courses, and students are actually using this tool, which is really, really nice to see. And we, as I said at the start, we are getting recognition from the sector with regards to this particular tool, and we've won a very specific Campus Technology Award against the AI conversation, which myself and the teams are very proud of, but we just hope that we're making an impact to the education community here, and we're getting that feedback from our clients as well. The next step with the AI conversation is to help you even further. So at the moment, you manually fill out those fields to get the AI conversation started. We are just going into the development of suggesting AI conversations to you. So if you're on a nursing course, we might be able to offer some suggestions of what AI conversations could be really cool to use with your students. And those will follow similar patterns to what you've seen in our product up till now. So really nice that we're able to use AI in a way to support inspiration, speed instructors up, give them some time back, and hopefully align to these pedagogical practices and allow students to really engage with these tools in a meaningful way. So my question to you is, what could or what would you use the AI conversation tool for in your subject area? I'd be really interested, because I've used a kind of medical, maybe a lightweight medical example today, but in your specific subject areas, what do you think? What sparked interest as I've gone through that? and you'd like to try the AI conversation out. So kind of what would you use it for in your subject area is my question to you today. But other than that, just a huge thank you to the future teacher team for thinking of me today and bringing me in to present. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I hope that's offered you something to go away and think about. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Richard. Finished bang on time as well, which is excellent. And that gives us a chance. That gives us a chance to kind of dive into some of the questions. We've had some really good questions come up for both speakers in the chat, and people have been engaging with the questions that the speakers have given to our delegates as well. So I wonder if Rosemary, you want to come in and let us know if there are any questions for Bob, and likewise Shan for Richard.
Yeah, so I know Bob has been frantically typing away in the chat, but let me pull out some of those questions just so that you can get them easily on the recording as well. So key question is always a crunch for us. Don't students prefer to set up their own social media rather than engage in the university provided? And then three other big questions. How do you handle large groups? What percentage of your users are engaging actively? And how about the staff development? Do staff need a lot of support to be able to engage effectively? So I'll leave you with those four.
Yeah. Okay. I've tried to answer three of those, I think, in the chat. Sorry, what was the first one, Rosemary?
Don't students prefer to set up their own social media, so like WhatsApp or that kind of thing, rather than engage in the OU forums?
They do indeed, and they very positively, I think, set up study groups in that respect. They also sometimes, with some reservations for us, I think, set up WhatsApp groups to specifically talk about assessments. And as a result, we do find sometimes that students are getting the wrong end of the stick about what's actually being asked of them. So we do, as far as possible, encourage them to engage with such questions within either the module forum, where a larger group of students can share ideas and perspectives, or more usually, if it's related to specific things like assessment, within their tutor group forums, where they are interacting with the tutor who will be marking, assessing their work, and who could advise them much more directly, therefore, about the particular requirements of a particular assessment. But we don't discourage it at all. It has its problems sometimes in terms of how students engage. And of course, we're not able to then monitor or moderate the student engagement if it becomes negative in any way. But we can, of course, do that within the discussion forums. In terms of student engagement, we actively monitor that. We have a whole host of systems that monitor student engagement with all aspects of a module, and engaging with the discussion forums is one of those aspects, and we actively use that information for the module teams and our quality monitoring systems to look at what's happening, to benchmark activity, to share ideas with other module teams and as to how they may or not be getting better data figures emerging than ours. I don't, again, suggest in any way that we're absolutely brilliant at this, and I don't think, and it may well be that the percentage of our students that engage probably looks very similar to that in other institutions. I may be right about that, not knowing what that data suggests. But we could confidently say that not all students engage. And I've noted in the chat that some of that's about previous skills, previous exposure to using discussion forums, and the ability of the tutors to actually engage students outside of the discussion forums in their interpersonal communications with them to support that. We also find, because we have a global audience for our students, that sometimes there are cultural nuances where students from certain countries won't engage as much because they feel that the lecturer or the tutor is the expert, and they should neither be challenging or offering alternative perspectives. And that's come through quite strongly in some of our research. And that also tends to influence the way that students think and write in assessments as well. They're not used to being challenging, to using different perspectives to think critically about subject areas. But then again, we see that reflected in a small way in our discussion forum activity as well. Have I covered the ones that you had there, Rosemary? I didn't get through all the chat list, but
Yeah, I think you have covered quite a few, and I think you've got really detailed answers in the chat. So maybe let Shan pick up a couple of questions for Richard next, and then we can get into the wider discussion.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, there was quite a lot of questions on both subjects, so I'm going to try and pick a few out. I mean, one of the things has been, is this being used? Are you seeing this, the AI chat tool being used for formative or summative assessment? I'd say that in Bangor, it's formative, and that's what it's recommended to be used for. Is that right, Richard, by Blackboard?
Yeah, I think the key use case for this is around formative. It's giving the student an opportunity to experience a scenario or check their own understanding of a particular topic using the Socratic questioning. Those are the kind of things which are definitely more on the formative side of the house, but we haven't restricted the tool. We've got all of the assessment settings against it should you want to make it a higher stakes assessment, but initially we don't necessarily seeing it being used like that. So I think formative is the path to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, can I just to say about the current thinking at the OU about this is that we're doing both with AI at the moment, that we have this 3-tier system of use of AI, generative AI, by students. There's one that says you can't use it at all. There's a second tier that says you can use it in preparation as long as you acknowledge how and the sources that you're using. And the third tier that says you must use it. So there are some technology courses and science courses that are building summative use of Gen AI into their assessment strategies. The default position is level 2, you can use it for preparation.
Yeah, and depending on which institutions we're talking to, it depends on their AI strategy, and some institutions are firing on the more innovative side. Some institutions are still looking at policy and procedures to put in place to support the use of AI. So we're seeing a range. So your 1, 2, 3 levels make a lot of sense, Bob. So thanks for sharing that. That's helpful.
You're welcome.
Another question that came up about the AI tool is really the kind of server resources of it. You know, it's a massive amount of, as we're going to be using these tools more now, the kind of impact on what, have you got any response to that, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've lent in very heavily to our partner in Microsoft for this. So when we launched this in 2023, we stood on the main stage at our annual conference with Microsoft to launch this. Now, there's lots of advantages to using Microsoft, which is that whole security, data privacy, their policy very much aligned to our policy and our trustworthy AI framework. But the other big piece is that Microsoft have been working really hard to get the green credentials of AI use under control. So in 2025, they expect to be completely reliant on renewable energy. So that should be happening this year. And then they want to be actually water positive with zero waste by 2030. So we're aligned to a partner that is seeing this as a really important part of their strategy. We're also looking at initiatives internally to do further offsetting to try and help with the use of AI for our clients, because we know that this is an important conversation point. But it is resource heavy. We all know that. There's no point saying it's not. It is. But if we can partner with somebody that's trying to get to a position where things are better, and if we are trying to offset as well, hopefully we're all working towards the same ultimate goal. So that's our current stance on the eco side of it, which is an important point, really important point.
Yeah. I've got one more question, and this was my question for Richard. It's about the conversation, ending of AI conversations. Is that something that's I mean, this is the same with like ChatGPT or anything. The conversation can go on forever, can't it? And for some students,
Yeah.
Unless we could control it, that could be, students would just be stuck in a loop of having this continuous conversation.
Yeah, so we've done a couple of things. This is more prevalent in the Socratic questioning than it is in the scenario, because the scenario generally does get to a point where you've reached the end of the scenario. I think was it Rob posted into the chat that interview skills would be a good one. There's a point where you've been through a scenario in an interview that you probably feel like you've explored everything you possibly can, and it's naturally wrapping up. The hospital triage activity is very similar. But with Socratic questioning, the questions can go on and on and on. So we've done some prompt engineering to try and suggest to the student that you've answered quite a lot now, you can move on to the reflection question. So we have already made some changes, and we'll continue to monitor the feedback on that. But it is a bit of a challenge, because you don't want to cut the student off too short and dampen their experience, but you don't want it to go on too long where they feel like they're having to engage for the sake of it. So it's trying to find that sweet spot. And you can't really limit it by the number of questions, because one student might need 5 questions to explore a topic, whereas another student might need 15 questions, because it's just taking them a little bit longer to absorb that information. So it's a very thin line that we're trying to walk, and we're still refining on that front for sure. No worries.
I've just been stimulated by a question Suzanne asked, which I think will be useful to find out from Bob as well. Who, and maybe Richard knows from the very many conversations he's had across the UK and beyond, who in an institution do you see supporting the use of these tools? And we don't just mean AI, because I mean, that's the trendy thing, right? I don't have skills in AI, who's going to help me? But once upon a time, or you could say nowadays, anyone who's pivoting to online learning, we take for granted that they'll know how to use discussion forums. Well, why do we make that assumption? There is a skill to running good discussion forums. So I just wonder, Bob and Richard, if you could come in and kind of talk about what you know about how staff are developed to use tools as they emerge. And for me, writing multiple choice questions as well, again, everyone just assumes that you're an expert in your subject, you can write multiple choice questions. Actually, not everyone can. So your thoughts?
Bob, I'll let you go first if you've got thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question, and when you have organizations of the size of ours, it's hugely difficult. And also when, as I said, 5,000 of our lecturers are actually part-time individuals who are not full-time in this role. Actually enabling them time to learn is very difficult. They do have it built into their contract, so there's a contractual requirement to provide it. And a whole lot of staff development activity is going on. But if I think about the current situation and the specific relationship with generative AI, in some ways, the Open University is kind of highly innovative in what they're doing in terms of research and developments in the use of these systems. but trying to bring all the staff on board quickly and easily is hugely difficult. We have a whole range of guidance now, but an awful lot of it is written, is online, and you're relying on individuals to access that, and to be able to understand it in order to implement it. Us as central academics have rather more opportunity to engage in a whole variety of staff development activities and forums. But there's still, it's still obvious in meetings that you have huge variance in the knowledge base and skills base of individuals in utilizing these things. And to be fair, we are, as a university, are very much in the early stages of deciding what our policies and principles are in respect of its use, particularly, related to assessments. So it would be fair to say that we're not fully prepared, for the way that the students are using these things, and how we respond and engage with it as academics. And I'm sure there are other institutions that are way ahead of us in this sense, and some that may be slightly behind. But it is, and having said that, we're pretty innovative in terms of what we're doing in terms of development and research. Translating that into active use by academics and students is a different matter altogether, with the kind of usual time lags that we see with this form of learning. Not saying much there. I'm really saying we're on unsettled ground in this respect.
To be fair, Bob, it's a technology that's landed very quickly, and institutions have been expected to pivot very quickly to it. And some have done that relatively successfully, and it's taking others a little bit longer to get there. And certainly big institutions, it genuinely is a challenge. So I completely hear you. So it sounds like you're doing great, though. I mean, just your 1, 2, 3 strategy is very digestible for academics, and I'd like to think that's being effective at the institution. So, but it's interesting to hear you talk about that for sure.
Yeah, and we have, I mean, this is a bit of a challenge, I guess, to some academics, but we have pilot projects running on both the development of AI personal tutors that will take our students through a personalized learning journey. That's a bit of a threat to human academics. We also have projects running on AI generation of course materials, which is another threat to academics as authors. And we have comparative research projects going on in that respect to see what emerges when we compare these two ways of production of our materials in the future. So there's a lot going on. As you say, Richard, I think we're in the early days of arriving at some conclusions. Some of my more research-based colleagues and who are more directly involved in the work will probably have very different perspectives on that to I.
From our perspective, a lot of the work that we've done is around building a solid foundation with regards to the Trustworthy AI framework. We've also got production standards that we have to follow as we're considering building AI features into the product. So it's not just about using for AI's sake. What is the problem that we're solving? Where's the instructor or the student in that journey? Where are the controls to switch this on, off? What happens if I don't want to use it? Are there alternative tools that I can choose to use? So all of these things are considered through the development. With regards to the literacy of academics, we have run several initiatives to try and help spread the word and help academics. So we've run an AI World Tour, which anybody could have come to. We're extending that at the moment. So there'll be further dates announced in the next few weeks and months. But we've effectively been around the globe with our local teams, and we have given opportunity for academics and institutions to discuss their use of the AI tools. We've run AI literacy workshops. Our client success team are all out with clients very regularly discussing the use of these tools and helping upskill. But one of the things that I think we bring to the table, which is different, is that if you go and use ChatGPT, it's almost like you're expected to know prompt engineering, because you do have to prompt engineer ChatGPT. The idea of the tools that we've built is that you don't need to prompt engineer. I was coming at that tool from an academic, setting an academic or a workplace scenario. I was not prompt engineering. And that is quite a big difference, is that you can actually use the tools within our product without having that level of prompt engineering and try it out. And that is where it's slightly different for us, is that we're trying to make these workflows as easy and as accessible for our end users as possible without having that AI knowledge. They know they're in an AI workflow, but they don't need to prompt engineer. And that's a really big part of how we've tried to tackle some of these challenges. But there are huge advantages to ChatGPT, Copilot, and things like that as well. So I think as we get more literate, it'll be interesting to see how we can move into that realm. But that's probably what I can share with you today.
Thanks very much. That's Patricia said that's a very helpful explanation. Yeah, I mean, Sean, and Richard, what you were just saying about those, like not needing those extensive prompt engineering skills. I don't know if anyone else recalls when we first learned to use search on the internet. You know, I used to worry about the fact that I might have been doing a inner outer query or not, you know, with like, you have to search academically with plus and in brackets, and there was a way to do it. I didn't learn it very well, obviously, because I can't remember it, but you felt like if you didn't search properly, you would get more results that you had to sift through than if you learned to search with the correct search terms. That's a way. You're nodding, Richard. Maybe you know you can save me.
I understand where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and no one talks about that anymore, right? The technology has developed so that we can pretty much ask it anything, and it pretty much works out what we're asking for.
Lillian,
And I
think
feel like that. Yeah.
I
Mike.
don't think that's true. If any academic is doing a literature search, they still have to do that, because all people are doing on Google is just ignoring the millions of searches and going for the top one. And now with AI added, it's just looking at the AI bit. So I think those searching skills, the fact nobody's doing it is a disaster.
Yeah, I think as well that things have evolved a little bit so that I'm using the word it. I've got no foundation for this gut feeling here, but it feels less complex now to do a search and to sift through the results. The results seem to be a little bit more aligned with what I was hoping to find. And when I go to let's say I'm not on the internet, let's say I'm on another subtool somewhere, and I use that same search string, it could return things that clearly, for me, are giving me results that are not accurate. So I'm taking it for granted that Google search is helping me in the background because of its algorithm, you know. So I'm guessing AI will become more natural as well. Like you can just, and in a weird sort of way, that's why I prefer to kind of almost ask a question into an AI tool than to Google search as well, because it does feel like it sifts through meaning a little bit with its predictive function and returns better answers. Everyone else, please feel free to jump in at this point and ask your questions or join in.
I mean, we are very aware that we don't want to release things out to students without the instructor absolutely being positive that this is going to perform in the way they expect it to. So just to give you a proof point of how we thought about this, normally in Blackboard, if you want to preview a course as a student, there's a very dedicated workflow to preview the course as a student, then you can try anything out. We felt that preview to the instructor of the student view was too far away from the AI workflow. So as you saw in my demo, I actually previewed it there and then. And that is a very deliberate decision to have the academic test what they've built into those text boxes, test it out, try it out, be rude to the tool, be controversial, share a view that might otherwise not be shared, and see how the AI tool reacts. So we're encouraging the academic to really test this and make sure it's getting the student through the conversation the way they expect it to before releasing it to them. So to Mike's point, we do have to be careful, but we're building in those tools where academics can check that it's working the way that it should. And if it's not, they can go and revisit very easily how they've built that tool and see whether they can refine it down. We are also opening up an opportunity in the next few weeks for institutions to share their AI conversations with us, because I think we've got an opportunity here to build a community of best practice around what AI conversations are working really well, what particular topics, what interview skills are people learning, what business strategies are people coming up with using the AI conversation tool. So I think that Anthology have a role to play for that wider community engagement, and then we're all learning together. And that's what's going to make these tools robust moving into the future.
Yeah. And I think that in talking earlier about the 3 levels of the Open University saying in that level 1 or level 3 about you must use generative AI is all about this notion of generating the student's critical approach to its use and what it is or isn't telling them in terms of the information that they're actually receiving. So that I think that's a primary purpose for having that level within our assessment principles related to Gen AI.
It's a very valid point. Suzanne was saying, you know, we used to say, don't, you know, maybe people who can think further back is like, don't get your answers from the internet. And then it became, don't get your answers from Wikipedia specifically. And now we're saying, don't get your answers from AI without, you know, reviewing. So things change. The debates still go on. As we develop more tools, we also question them a bit more. I think that's the best skill you could do is to be cynical, but to engage. I think a little bit of both.
I think
So yeah, sorry, Shannon, then we need to give Ron time to share more information about our next webinar. Nothing from Shannon? Okay, thank you everyone. And before you go, I think we want to promote our next webinar in February, and also encourage you to share in the chat what one thing you'll do as a result of having attended today's session.
Yeah, thanks, Lillian. I'll put the link direct to the page in the chat, or the section in the page in the chat. So if you've already got the resource open, you'll need to refresh, because we had it automatically show after 12:30, I think, or 1:30 rather. So you'll see that the next session is developing fluency with digital tools and resources. That's on the 27th of February, same time, and you'll need to register there. We'll do as we normally do and publicize information over the various channels, including our future teacher list. At the top of this page, you'll find information about us. I notice I mentioned at the beginning of the session that Julie has joined us. Perhaps we'll find a moment for Julie to introduce herself as well. And then in the panel for today's session with our guest speakers, you'll find a link to Bob's presentation already there. I think, Richard, if you want to send me a link to something to put in there, I can do that. And then under the What Next panel, you'll find some suggestions about sharing the resources and the recording with colleagues, joining our very low traffic mailing list, which is where we announce the availability of the recordings and the next sessions and so on. There's a LinkedIn group, the mailing list, and there's all this history of resources that you'll find via the drop down. As Lillian mentioned, in the text chat, before you leave, if you could just share one specific thing you'll do as a result of what you've seen and heard today, that helps us, and I'm sure will help you all. And we put a copy of the text chat into the resource once the recording is available. So as an example of how all of that works, if we look at the November session, you'll find the panel for the speakers, the recording, and then the text chat is embedded below where you can kind of check those kind of things, including the reflections people gave about what they would do as a result of that session. But do also that, there's time to reflect afterwards. Do also share via our mailing list any kind of blog posts or examples or anything else you want to engage the Future Teacher community with as a result of what you've seen and heard today. Stop my sharing.
Thank you very much, Ron. It's 2 o'clock, so I'm actually going to stop the recording here.